Welcome back to Fresh Outlook, everybody. A decade ago, Turkey was at peace with its neighbors. The economy humming, democracy flowering. The country's military reined in. And the 40-year war with its Kurdish population appeared to be over. That was then, this is now. Now, new elections, parliamentary elections, are slated to take place on November 1st. Take a look.
Back in June, Turkey had a parliamentary election, an election in which the president's AK party lost its majority to the rise of the main Kurdish HDP. Since then, the country suffered a wave of violence, including 2 sizable suicide bombings against pro-Kurdish groups, seemingly at the hands of ISIL. The streets in many regions are not safe. In turn, President Erdogan says all this could be fixed if the AKP were returned to power, and thus has called for new elections to commence this weekend. In the span of time between the June elections and now, President Erdogan and his AKP party have tightened control by installing loyalists into key positions. Another voice making trouble for the AKP comes from the free press. So on October 28th, state authorities once again raided and shut down media outlets. This time, İpek Media, which runs 2 newspapers and 2 television outlets. One of those outlets is Bugün News. Analysts expect Sunday's election to echo similar results as in June, which brings the question of whether AKP or Erdogan would allow his party to form a coalition. That, it is said, would effectively force the Turkish president to relinquish his iron grip in Turkey.
Back on set live now here at Fresh Outlook. I am joined by the Fresh Outlook think tank, Jackie Guzda, media analyst at Western Connecticut State University, Dr. Mustafa Tablani, a journalist, and Dr. Bart Rossi, a political psychologist. Joining us live from D.C. is Tom Squitieri, an author and journalist. Tom, you're up in the monitor. I'll begin with you. What's your take on elections taking place on the 1st? Is it going to change things in Turkey, in your opinion?
I don't believe it will change many things in Turkey, even if the party wins an outright majority. And here's why. The various pressures on it, everything from what's happening in Syria to its deteriorating relationship with the United States to the Kurds and to soccer scandals, it's just going on a downhill slope. And so you're either going to have to address those problems, which are significant, and do that right away, or you're going to try to continue to coalesce power and get back the power you lost, which people in Washington tend to think will be the latter. So whether it changes much or not doesn't really depend on the outcome of the election so much, unless Erdogan is so weakened in the election that he has to form a coalition, and that coalition somehow lurches towards solutions.
All right, thanks, Tom. Let's turn to Dr. Rossi. A lot of what's happening in Turkey can be blamed on one man, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. What's your armchair analysis of what's going on with this guy? Because he had us almost as part of the EU at one point, at least Turkey, and now it seems like everything's falling apart in the nation.
Well, actually, he reminds me of Christie a little bit. Is he believable? I mean, is this guy believable anymore? And Turkey has to decide where they're going to go. You know, psychologists talk about being the best you can be. Well, what's Turkey going to be? Who are they? Are they really NATO allies? Where's the country going, and where is this guy going to take the country? And I think a lot of people in the country feel that Erdogan is really a problem. He's a question mark. And is he believable? You know, Christie's walking around, and most folks in New Jersey don't believe him. And this guy's over here in another country in the same manner in a lot of ways. I don't think people relate to him. I'm not sure he's attracting voters. And I think that it's a big problem, and that's why there's a big fracture over there.
Mustafa, you have family, friends in Turkey. You're well acquainted with the situation over there. What's your take on Erdogan? What's your take on this election that's upcoming?
Well, Erdogan's party, AKP, didn't win the election. In a sense, they couldn't form the majority. And none of the 4 parties get along with each other, so they couldn't do any coalitions. Meanwhile, Erdogan consolidated his power not in Turkey, but within his own party. Now AKP, once it was liberals were there are technocrats over there are Kurdish parliaments over there. It was a wide range of a coalition, the AKP itself, the ruling party. Now all of them disappeared, and whatever Erdogan says, people does. And that's a very frightening situation.
So he's basically running the country, in your opinion, as a dictator.
Well, he's running his own country, and he's also influencing state regulatory boards who are supposed to be impartial and bipartisan and neutral in a sense. But behind the scenes, he is influencing all. But his voter base is shrinking, but not fast enough. He has a solid 25-30% that's going to vote for him no matter what.
Jackie, part of what Erdogan is doing to maintain full control or a chokehold on Turkey is to control the media. This tends to be a tactic that many despots use.
Right. I mean, how crazy is this? We over here in the West, when we look at that, simply can't believe it. And when you look at the Arab papers now, they're saying the same thing. This is unbelievable. What Erdogan did was he found this Article 133 in the Penal Code in Turkey that said if a company has a criminal element, if they are committing a crime, then the government can appoint a trustee to take that over. So what did they do this week? They went right into the control room and they arrested journalists, they arrested all of the broadcast people and pulled them into jail. This is simply crazy. They're saying over there now, and they're saying all around the world, is Turkey still a democracy? Because it sure doesn't look like it is.
Sounds like Vladimir Putin a great deal, and it sounds like the United States a great deal when it comes to the Patriot Act that's often used to condone and authorize subversive behavior.
Yeah, I mean, where are they going? I mean, when you think of Turkey, you're thinking of a fractured country, but they're really our ally. They're a NATO ally, but they're not acting like that. They're pitching to the Russians. They're concerned about Iran, and who are they? And we don't know. And I think that the fact that there's such a fracturing group now over there, it tells us that that's what it is. That's what we have in Turkey today. And what I think is they need to come up with some peace with the Kurds. The Kurds seem to really present themselves very well. And somehow they still want to have a war with the Kurds. I can't figure that one out. And I just think they need a direction and they need a strategy that makes sense. And Erdogan's not going down that road.
And Mustafa, it seems as though the crackdown on ISIS is also a crackdown on the Kurdish population. And I imagine this is an attempt by Erdogan to basically hammer the HDP party.
Yes, and also the terror organizations, terrorist attempts, and these are always consolidate the national pride, patriotic feelings. And when it's near the election, it can also translate into votes. But Erdogan was turning a blind eye to ISIS because they were fighting Assad for a very long time. Now there are terrorist attacks by the ISIS inside Turkey. Now he cannot do that. He wants the Kurdish groups, armed groups, fight with ISIS in some way so that he can present himself as the good guy. But he's the ruling the country for 12 years. If those guys are flourishing in the state, that would say something about his statesmanship.
Almost like what Trump said about George W. Bush. If 9/11 happens on your watch, you're at least partly responsible.
Yes.
You know, you can't say I kept America safe when you had 3,000 Americans die. Jackie, where do you see these elections going? It sounds from what I've read, they're going nowhere, that it's going to be basically a repeat of the June election, correct?
Right, right. And so I just want to add on to what Dr. Bart said, is that you've got two, I would say, beyond the factions, you've got value changes in Turkey. You've got the values that wanted to become more of the EU and go more Western. And then you've got, as you do in every country everywhere, the faction that wants to keep things the same. They want to go back to the old days. It's comfortable for them. I think that's at the basic problem here right now in Turkey. But Erdogan, I don't see how they're going to get him out this time.
And Erdogan is actually taking what Jackie has talked about to coalesce his party, basically saying the secularists are ruining this nation, that we need to be more Islamist, correct?
Yes, and also he blames whichever is fashionable. He blames America, United States, he blames European Union for not taking Syrian refugees. And basically, whatever he wants to blame, he blames Iran, he blames Putin. Yeah, I mean, whatever is fashionable is going to bring him votes. But he is consolidating his power, and I think one element that can make a stop to this is the AKP itself. They may say that, okay, president has some powers, but executive branch is the prime minister. We want strong prime minister. Prime minister must make decisions about this country, and whatever the president's role is, it should be stay there. But it's not happening. He's influencing the prime minister.
You know, it sounds like a psychological problem that we have with a politician, like we have here in this country. We have politicians that we don't know how to make sense of them.
Right.
And that's what we have here.
Right. Well, we had President Gül. He was mostly a ceremonial president.
Yes.
And when Erdogan decided to run for president, he actually seized power. And it was actually a smart move on his part, because now he's not really beholden to parliament.
Yes, and he's not responsible. He doesn't have accountability, and he can just say that, well, the governor of a city is responsible because they couldn't stop the terrorist attack. I don't have the power. I am the ceremonial power. I'm the president. I'm not the governor of that city that bombing happened, etc. So whenever it benefits him, he says that, well, you cannot hold me accountable. Whenever he likes it, he wants to step up and tells people what to do.
He's a moving target. It is tough to take aim. Thank you so much, all of you, for your insight on this topic. When we come back, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest investments any family in the United States can make, and that is paying for a costly college education. More on that after this.